Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem. Amma ba'du. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Was-sama'i dhatil buruj. Wal yawmil maw'ud. Wash-shahidi wa mashhud. Qutila ashabul ukhdud. An-nari dhatil waqud. Idhum alayha qu'ud. Wa hum ala ma yaf'aluna bil mu'minina shahud. وما نقموا منهم إلا أن يؤمنوا بالله العزيز الحميد الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء شهيد إن الذين فتنوا المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم لم يتوبوا فلهم عذاب جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ذلك الفوز الكبير. Welcome again to Siratu Khatam Nabi, in a new episode. And I left you in the last episode where we discussed the particular point where we'd reached in the Sirah, and we were still bringing together the background, bringing together the backdrop before the arrival of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we're talking about Yemen in particular, and about what had happened in Yemen and how religion or how the teachings of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam had reached Yemen. And we'd mentioned that a people there, the people of Najran, they used to worship a tall palm tree. And it was an individual called Famirun, who came along and destroyed that tree by supplicating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to prove the falsehood of the religion that the people of Najran had followed. As a result, the people of Najran then accepted the faith that Faymiyun had brought, and with them they had now adopted the teachings of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam as their religion. And this is how eventually then it metamorphosized itself into what we could term now as Christianity. But we saw, for instance, that this didn't last long. And we have a situation where Abdullah ibn Thamir, who when he accepted the religion of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, the teachings of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam at the hands of Faymiyun, and then Dhun Nuwas was killed him and his companions. And the way Dhun Nuwas killed him and his companions was that they dug up Ukhdud. Okay, Ukhdud is a trench, and this was a long trench that was dug, which was in a ground like a ditch. And what Dhun Nuwas did was he made a fire in there. He put fuel inside these ditches, and he sort of ignited them, and he made it burn, and he made it burn until it was extremely hot. And then what he did was he burned these people by these ukhduds. It's estimated that around 20,000 people died. And when I started today's episode, I recited to you a number of verses from Surah Al-Buruj. And those verses, as you heard, started with Was-sama'i zatil buruj. And that's referring to the sky or the heavens and the great stars that it contains. Wal yawmil maw'ud, and the promised day. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is taking a qasam, because the wow here is of qasam, of oath. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes oath. He says, by the sky which possesses the great stars, and by the promised day, al-yawmil maw'ud, wa shahidi wa mashhud, and by the witness and that which is witnessed. Qutila ashabul ukhdud, will be cursed or are cursed the companions of, or the individuals of the trench. What was this trench? An-nari dhatil waqud. In this trench it was full of fire, which was fuel. So it was the fire which was full of fuel, and it was ignited, and it had within it items which would burn for longer periods of time and retain heat, like stones, and items in there which were to set off the fire in the first place, or accelerants. Idhum alayha qu'ud, when they were sitting next to it, people were lined up next to the fire. Wa hum ala ma yaf'aluna bil mu'minina shuhud, and they, to what they were doing against these believers, against the mu'mineen, they were witnesses. Because before the advent of Islam, before the arrival of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people were considered as believers, those who followed the religion of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. وَمَا نَكَمُوا مِنْهُمْ إِلَّا أَن يُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ. And what was their issue? What concern did these people have, Dhun Nuwas and his people? Why was it that they were killing these individuals? What would they gain from it? The only issue they had, they resented them. Why? وَمَا نَكُوا. They did not resent them except for what? Except أَن يُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ. Only because they believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-Aziz and al-Hamid. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes himself in third person. الَّذِي لَهُ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. To whom belongs the kingdom and the power and the dominion over the heavens and the earth. وَاللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدٌ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over all things is a witness. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَتَنُوا الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Indeed, as for those individuals who torture and eventually kill the believing men and the believing women, ثُمَّ لَمْ يَتُوبُوا. And then they don't repent afterwards. فَلَهُمْ عَذَابُ جَهَنَّمْ. For them will be the punishment of Jahannam, of hellfire. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابُ الْحَرِيقِ. And they will have as a punishment the burning fire. Whereas إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Indeed, as for those people who believe and they do good deeds, for them will be gardens underneath which rivers flow. ذَلِكَ الْفَوْزُ الْكَبِيرُ. And that is the great success. So we find this tale of these individuals here, where Abdullah ibn Thamir accepted Islam, accepted the teachings of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam at the hands of Femiyun. And when Dhun Nuwas heard about this, then he lined up Abdullah ibn Thamir and all his followers and had them killed by the ditch which was dug up and then set on fire, and fuel was placed inside it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in Surah Al-Buruj. So we can see here what happened. Now if you recall back, there was obviously some discussion also by the two soothsayers which mentioned, that eventually the people of Najran would eventually be overthrown and an Abyssinian leaders would take over. So what we see is, and this, remember, if you recall, it was Shik and Satih, and one of these people of Najran did survive after this genocide, after this effort that Dhun Nuwas made to have them all annihilated and removed from Yemen, and his name was Dawth Dhu Tha'laban, and he escaped on his horse across the desert until he reached Caesar, who was in charge at that time of the Byzantium Empire, which was the Eastern European Roman Empire. And this emperor had also been following the teachings of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. So he said it was because of the same religion that they professed, he was seeking help from him. But the emperor said to him, look, my people are too far. If for me to travel down here from Constantinople, for me to travel here from all the way down into Yemen, is going to take a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources required. I'm crossing a desert as well. It'd be far easier if the king of Abyssinia assisted you, because they also follow the teachings of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. So Caesar, what he did is he wrote a letter to the king of Abyssinia and had it sent to him. So when those took this letter from Caesar and across to King Negus, which is the title given to the king of Abyssinia, he dispatched 70,000 soldiers under the leadership of two officers. One was Ariyat and the other name was Abraha al-Ashram. And Abraha is a name you'll need to remember. So they crossed the sea across into Yemen, and when they reached there, Dhun Nuwas came out to meet him, thinking that he would be able to destroy these people as well, and his forces were made up of both Himyar tribes and the Yemeni tribes. And when they battled, then the Abyssinians have defeated Dhun Nuwas and his people. And what Dhun Nuwas did was he sort of led his horse into the sea, and he died at that point. So Ariyat entered into Yemen and he took control of Yemen. So Ariyat, being the senior, he was given authority by King Negus to then rule over Yemen and allow the teachings of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam to return as they were with as we mentioned earlier, Abdullah ibn Thamir. This Ariyat remained in control, the sort of governor of King Negus. He remained in control over Yemen for some time. But eventually, as with most situations, greed gets the better of a person, and Abraha felt he was a better leader. So what he did was he challenged Ariyat. And what happened was the Abyssinian army split into two sides. And instead of coming together and agreeing, they faced off against one another and they came to battle. But what Abraha did was also a smart tactic, because he was acting like a statesman. He was thinking ahead, that if we go to war, we're going to lose lots of men on my side, we're going to lose lots of men on Ariyat's side. Eventually, the victor, Abraha obviously thought it would be him, would have to rule over Yemen, and with less soldiers, this would prove more difficult. It would make more sense that, and well, this is what Abraha suggested to Ariyat, is that you and I face off against one another as a duel. And whoever wins the duel obviously will live, and when he lives, he will take over the kingdom. Now, this was quite a smart move, obviously quite courageous as well, because the smart move was that the person who would be a victor then would continue to have a strong army to rule over Yemen. So Ariyat agreed, and Abraha and Ariyat faced off. But Ariyat was also somewhat devious, and he had a sort of a trick up his sleeve. Abraha was a short, much stocky man, and Ariyat was a much tall, powerfully built man, and his sort of weapon of choice was the javelin. But what Abraha had prepared was that he placed a slave behind him named of Atwada, and he said that you stay here and basically defend me if it proved difficult. So Ariyat cast the javelin as Abraha expected, and the javelin hit him, but it didn't hit him square in the face. It hit him as Abraha was sort of moving out of the way, and it deflected, but it did still make contact with him. And what it did was it hit him on the forehead, it slit his eyebrow, his eye, his nose, and his lip. And after this, his name was given Ashram, Al-Ashram. Al-Ashram means the one with a cleft face, because his face had now been cut open. But what Atwada did, the slave that was hiding behind Abraha, is that he advanced forward behind Abraha, and he attacked and killed Ariyat. So as was agreed, that whoever was left, and there was nobody else, even though people could clearly see that Abraha had cheated, Abraha had used trickery to beat Ariyat. There was nobody really equal to him. So as a leader, he was the only choice left. So even though they may not have absolutely agreed with his methods, they knew full well now that the only person who could bring them all together was Abraha, and as a result, Abraha became the leader by default. News reached King Negus of this what had happened, and it infuriated Abraha. He was infuriated rather by what Abraha had done. So he said, that, you know, I never permitted this. I was happy with Ariyat in charge. These were my commands, clear commands, and you've refused to accept them. So King Negus took an oath, and he said that I swear that I will not rest until I have trodden on his land and cut off his hair. So when Abraha heard this, what he did was, again, he was smart and devious at the same time. He cut his own hair and placed them inside a leather bag, and he took some soil from the ground and he placed that in the leather bag, and he sent that with a note. And he said, "O king, Ariyat was your slave like I am. We differed in regarding our command, but everyone accepts you as the leader. I was more stronger, more effective, more skillful, and as a result I proved that by beating Ariyat. And what I've done is, you can see in this bag, I have placed inside there my hair that I've cut, and also some soil from Yemen. Why? So that you may keep your oath as a king, because you made your oath now, you can't back down. You can now walk on put the soil under your foot and walk on it, and you can maintain your oath." When King Negus received the message, he was somewhat pleased by Abraha's reaction. First of all, he had shown him humbleness and humility, recognizing King Negus as the king and not challenging him. So his authority was still there. So in essence, it was King Negus's leadership still over Yemen. It wasn't as if he had separated himself from the state. He had separated himself and set up a country on his own. He was still acknowledging King Negus as the leader. Also, he sort of took the humiliation, or to humiliate himself rather than allow King Negus, he removed his own hair and sent it to him. And also, so that the king would not break his oath, he sent some soil as well, so that he'd be able to say, as he did, that I will trod on his land, so that he may do so. So Abraha stayed in charge, and this is how Abraha reached to Yemen. Now, with Abraha in Yemen, There is an account that we hear mentioned again in Surah, and this time is Surah Al-Fil, which we hear. أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعْلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ أَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ كَيْدَهُمْ فِي تَضْلِيلٍ وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ طَيْرًا أَبَابِيلَ تَرْمِيهِمْ بِحِجَارَةٍ مِّن سِجِّيلٍ فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ. Now we hear here, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعْلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. We hear in this surah, do you not know, or can you not see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dealt with the companions or those who were assisted with the elephants? Now who are these individuals that were assisted by the elephants? How is this related to the story of Abraha? And what is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected by how he dealt with the people of the elephants? Now this is an interesting point that we reach, because we now find that Abraha will take an interest outside of Yemen, and he will now start to consolidate power and consider himself as the leader outright on the Arabian Peninsula and challenge what has stood for millennia, and that is the Kaaba itself. But for that part of the story, for that episode to take place, you're going to have to join me again in the next episode, in which we will be able to discuss Surah Al-Fil in more detail, and also see where did Abraha go, what have the elephants got to do with this, and how did he go about attacking the Kaaba, and how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defend the Kaaba. I hope you can join me again in our journey on Siratu Khatam al-Nabiyyin. We're getting closer to the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're getting closer to detailing his actual life and the events which took place, which changed the Arabian Peninsula forever and has never been the same since. But we're slowly building up to that, and as we're building up to that, we will take Abraha's story a little bit further and see what he did as he traversed across to annihilate the Kaaba. I hope you can join me again in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.